My son Jonathan and Isabella and myself are going to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. So if everybody could stand and face the flag. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome, Santa Clarita. This is my home. My wife works here. She's a deputy here. I went to high school out here. My children were born here. I live here. Santa Clarita means a lot to me. A lot. Public safety means a lot. My children mean everything. And your children mean everything. And we are here for our children and for our families. Our children and our families. We should not leave this planet without making sure that it's safe for our children and our families. And so this rally is important. I want to thank Isabella and Jonathan for leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I want to thank Adam from Unite LA for providing us with the ability to be able to do this rally here, and the Signal, Richard from the Signal. They really stepped up and really helped a lot to get this going. I want to let everybody know that Recall Gascón is there, and they could take signatures. Anybody wants to sign the petition, Recall Gascón will be there for you to do that. I'm going to let you know we need signatures. We need signatures. That is what is going to get this recall accomplished, is signatures. And so please, you can also get with the Recall Gascón group, and they'll let you know how to volunteer. I want to let everybody know that a lot of people are here today going to speak to you. We have the elected DA of Kern, the elected DA of Fresno, and the elected DA of Sacramento, all here to talk to you. Your mayor's here. Bill Miranda's here. He's going to speak. He's going to talk to you also. There's a large group of family members of victims that are going to be here, and they're going to talk to you. The sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva, who's been fighting hard every day, is here. There's so many other important people here. I'm going to try to get to them throughout this rally. I will bring them up and bring up individuals who are here that I appreciate, that have been dedicating their time to this fight for children, this fight for survivors. I want to let everybody know this is a fight for public safety. It has nothing to do with politics. As a child abuse prosecutor, when somebody comes to me and a child has been tortured and murdered, I don't ask the detective or the family members, what political party are you? What I do is I sit down, and if I have the evidence, we file the case and we fight for justice for that child, no matter what political party you belong to. This isn't political. It's about public safety. It's also about following the law. And we have a DA who does not want to follow the law. We have a DA who claims to be a prosecutor who doesn't want to prosecute. We have a DA who's never tried one single case, not one case in his entire career. And I learned a lot in the Army. But one thing I did learn is you lead by example. And this DA is not doing that. I want to first bring up Vicky Speed. She is the wife of a great deputy that I knew, Deputy Speed, who I worked with in Antelope Valley, who I did a lot of burglary cases with. He was a good man. He was a good deputy. And his wife, Vicky, has really stepped up and has really supported a lot of what is going on here. And Vicki is going to lead us in a prayer and invocation. Vicki Speed.
Thank you everyone for being out here today. As John said, I'm the wife of Detective Mitch Speed. I did lose my husband in 2018 to cancer, and really I've just taken the baton along with Tanya Owen, and we run with it, and it's to support and advocate for law enforcement, but right now the most important thing is to get Gascón out. So I'm not going to make this political. I really just want to take a minute to pray. It's actually something my husband did on a regular basis for his partners, for warrants, for anyone in the department. So I'm taking this baton, and here we go. If you guys can bow your heads, and if you could please remove your hats, I would appreciate it. Father God, we just come to you as a community, as a county. We come together tonight in friendship and love, as neighbors. First and foremost, I want to pray for the family of Kern County Deputy Philip Campos. Father, just be with his wife and his children at this very difficult time, with their department, with those throughout the state of California, and our entire law enforcement community. Father, I want to thank you for our sheriff, who is standing up for what is good in a time that evil is just running rampant. I just want to ask you to please just guide him and direct him, but most importantly, protect him. For John Atami and his family, Father, that he has taken this on, he has taken this recall on, that he believes in what he's doing, and this really is just good and evil. It's not political, it's not Republican, it's not Democrat, it's about the victims and the families. Father, let us have eyes to see, ears to hear, and an open heart. And thank you for everyone here tonight, and for these victims. Just give them the words to make an impact. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Vicki. Next will be Isabella, and she's going to come up, and she's going to introduce the Kern County elected DA, Cindy Zimmer.
Good evening. I'm Isabella Blue, and I am the founder of the United LA Foundation. I want to thank everyone for coming out to support this event and United LA Foundation. Over the past 2 years, I have had an amazing opportunity to work with the kids from all over Southern California, teaching them how to skateboard and ensuring them that they have good skateboards and safe, clean places to skate. I will say, however, my favorite student is my mentor and hero, Sheriff Alex. I want to give out a shout out to my ladies, LA City Council, President Martinez, Auntie Cece, Miss Patricia, Miss Vivian, the LASD wives, and most importantly, my mom Jennifer, who have all taught me how to be strong and that girls can do anything. Before I introduce you to another amazing woman, I want to first ask if we can have a moment of silence to celebrate the life of Kern County Deputy Campus. Remember to always keep rolling towards your dreams. Please give everyone a warm Los Angeles County welcome to the one, the only, DA Cindy Zimmer. Cindy Zimmer is the best! Give it up for Cindy!
I have to tell you, that's the best introduction I've ever gotten. I want to take her on the road with me to Kern County, because I think I get some votes there. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. 5 days ago, on Sunday, July 25th, Kern County Sheriff's Deputy Philip Campos, who I knew, lost his life. He was called out because he's a member of the SWAT team to a little town near Bakersfield named Wasco. And he was called out there because there was a 911 call that there was somebody within a house that was shooting his family members. So the SWAT team went out. They tried to talk the shooter out of the house. It didn't work. So Deputy Campos and Deputy Guerrero decided to go in to rescue the victims. And when they attempted to breach the door, the shooter shot them both. Deputy Campos lost his life, and Deputy Guerrero was wounded. After a couple more hours of a standoff, Kern County SWAT and the Bakersfield Police Department SWAT shot and killed the shooter. They went inside and they found 3 people dead inside the house that the shooter had killed. So in all, he killed 4 people that afternoon. He killed his wife, he killed his 24-year-old son, he killed his 17-year-old son, and he killed beloved Deputy Phil Campos. If the shooter, who had 4 felony convictions and had served time in state prison, had not been killed, then I can tell you I would have directed charges to be filed against him for 4 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, which carries the death penalty or life without parole. He would have never gotten out of custody had he lived. Had that crime occurred in Los Angeles County and he had lived because of George Gascón, it wouldn't have been the same filing. He would have probably filed 4 counts of first-degree murder, but no special circumstances, and with that, Jose Ramirez, the shooter, the 4-time felon, would have had the opportunity to get out on parole. And George Gascón would have, had he still been the DA in 15 years, which he's not going to be because he's going to be recalled, but hypothetically, if he had been the DA in 15 years, he wants to review everyone's sentence that's been in prison for 15 years, and he doesn't want to oppose someone who comes up for parole their first time. He won't even go to parole hearings or allow people to go to parole hearings. So therefore, it is possible that that shooter, had he lived and done the crime here, would do 15 years in state prison. That's less than 4 years per victim. But in Kern County, he would have probably gotten the death penalty. It's the big difference. Look, I have been a prosecutor for 37 years. 37 years, my entire life. George Gascón is no prosecutor. He is no prosecutor. It is the job of the district attorney to keep the community safe, to protect victims, and he is failing miserably at his job. You know, DA elections are kind of hard, I think, for civilians or people who are not in the law enforcement business to figure out, well, who should I vote for? What is it that they're trying to talk about? You know, it's kind of complicated, and we would talk about special circumstances and that kind of thing. But I can tell you, Los Angeles voters got it wrong. They got it wrong. But you know what? Angelenos realized they got it wrong. They realized it, and now there's something that they can do about it, and that something is this recall. That is what they have to do. So for those of you here who I know are in support of the recall, but for those of you that are watching this out there in, you know, from your homes, for those of you that may read about this, if it's in the paper, I really urge you to get involved in this recall because it really matters. You know, everybody in my town knows about this recall. They can't get Gascon's name quite right, but they know that this is going on down here. They say to me, what about that weirdo in LA who's DA? What's going on with that? How did he even get elected? I said, you know, it's complicated. It's complicated, it was bad timing, but I believe Angelenos will make it right. So I really urge people, get involved in this recall. It makes a difference. Volunteer to get signatures, give money, do whatever that you can do, because it makes a difference. It's going to make a difference for the future of Los Angeles, but also for the future of California. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Remember, Kern is just right next door. Crime has no boundaries. And so we're all in this together. We are all in this fight together. Next, I'd like to introduce to you Emma Rivas and Imelda Hernandez. They are two moms. They are two moms who are going to talk to you about their story. And this is what this is about. This is about victims. This is about survivors. This is about their family members who feel like we have a DA who has abandoned them. And I hope you listen to their story and listen to what they want to talk to you about. Okay? Emma and Imelda.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I came all the way from Torrance, California. This is very emotional for me because the guy that murdered my son is a gang member. And I joined the Recall George Gascón campaign when my prosecutor called me this year to tell me he had some really bad news for me. I thought the bad news was that they were going to release the murderer to my child. Instead, he told me that our new district attorney was going to drop the gang enhancements, parolee with a gun. That would have been 20 years on top of the guy's sentence. The guy that murdered my child is a known gang member. He tried to kill 2 out of 3 of my children. 2 of my sons witnessed a horrific crime in front of our home in Torrance, California. And I'm going to let you know, my children are not gang related. My son that was murdered was not gang related. I'm a little choked up right now, but thinking about that. This recall DA needs to be done, you guys. I can't bring back my dead son, but I would love to know that the guy that murdered my son stay in jail the rest of his life. He took my son's life. He should lose his life. I have 2 sons now with post-traumatic syndrome. They are not the same children I had before their brother was murdered. My sons need a lot of emotional help. My mother has anxiety. She has PTS. I have anxiety, and I have no one to care for me. I am a working mother. I have to go out there and I have to earn for my living and take care of my sons with PTS. I do not get help from the government. And George Gascón has not shown an ounce of empathy towards my family. I have 2 sons that witnessed a murder. And they cannot function as human beings anymore. They're not normal, you guys. And that is not fair that I have to worry about the murderer to my son walking the streets one day. I will be retiring from my job at a younger age because I can't handle being at work and worrying about my sons with PTS. You guys should worry about your safety because the guy that murdered my son will be released in 15 years. Your children, I see your children are small. They're going to be walking with murderers, pedophiles, rapists. Are you guys okay with that? No. You guys should have already, anytime you see that recall, George Gascón, you should be having your family members sign it. It's not so much for if it's your safety, your children's safety. We all deserve to live in safe cities. When did we come complacent that it's okay to murder people and be a pedophile and be a rapist and be okay with that? There's no consequences for these criminals. We should all be mad at Gascón. We should all have him out of office. He should not be in office. I'm going to please, when you see that recall, this is important. Our safety is important. Like Jonathan just said, his children are little. They deserve to walk the streets safely. You deserve to walk the streets safely. I deserve to not worry about my child's murderer being released in 15 years. George Gascón doesn't give a damn for any of you. I'm so sorry to tell you that. But your DA don't care about our safety. Thank you, everyone. This is Imelda.
I wrote some words here. Thank you. I'm sorry. Not easy, guys. All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank the City Council for voting a no confidence on George Gascón. Thank you. Thank you for keeping your city, or wanting to keep your city safe. My name is Imelda, and I'm here along with so many families who are here and not here. It's hard for us to come out, and organizations that support the recall of George Gascón. He must be recalled and replaced with a district attorney who supports victims, co-victims, and public safety for Los Angeles County and your community of Santa Clarita. We need a new district attorney who supports us, the victims here, public safety, and not the criminals. I can promise you that George Gascón acts like an undercover public defender. He advocates for criminals only, and pretty much he's left his job of district attorney, and his office is pretty much vacant because he supports criminals, not us. I'm also here for my son, Christian Silva. He was murdered last year in the streets of LA County in the city of Artesia, California by gang members. He was shot in the head. Complete innocent victim of a violent act. But he was a hero. He said he saved 7 lives as an organ donor. So he's definitely our hero to so many. Thank you. If it wasn't for the deputy district attorneys filing an injunction on Gascón's directives and winning, and temporarily winning, it's only temporary, because Gascón is trying to fight that, of course, the special circumstances and gun allegations on Christian's case would have been immediately dropped. I'm asking, how is that a fair trial for Christian, for victims, let alone all victims with a court hearing that's pending? It's not. It's not. It's for the criminals, but not for the victims or the families. To Gascón, the criminals are the victims. George Gascón is a complete health hazard to Los Angeles County and to Santa Clarita. He talks about a health hazard. No, he's a health hazard to our communities. He's trash. Absolutely. Yes. So we support you. Please support our recall. Please get on George Gascón recall.com if you need to know more. We need signatures. We need to get them out. We need your support. Thank you very much. Thank you. I wanted to cry. Me too.
Thank you for coming.
Next up, I want to introduce a good man, somebody I knew before he became the mayor, just as a resident of Santa Clarita, a person who cares about this community, a person who's a veteran. I also want to let you know 27 cities have now voted no confidence in the elected DA. That is over 1.5 million residents that are represented by those cities. And unlike George Gascón and the people who follow him, those are not just conservative Republicans. Those are Republicans, those are Democrats, those are independents, those are declined estates, those are everybody that is joined together because of public safety. The next person I want to introduce is the mayor of Santa Clarita, Bill Miranda.
Thank you, John. I won't be long. I know it's hot, but I did want to introduce, if she's near here, our Mayor Pro Tem, Lorene West. She's over there. I see her. And City Council Member Jason Gibbs. He's right over there also. And I'm usually not in the habit of introducing the entire council, but in this case I'm going to introduce them, or I did introduce them, because this council was the first council, as Jonathan mentioned, the first council that stood up to Mr. Gascón and said, no, we're not going to go for this. It was the first council. We didn't just talk the talk, we walked the walk. Okay. We're here to let you know we are not giving up that fight. We are not giving up that fight. We've been on national television, we've been on regional television, we've been on local television, we've done more interviews than I can mention. But I'm going to tell you something, every time we get an opportunity to get the word out, we're going to get the word out. Okay, we're going to use our microphones to get the word out. Now, what we need from you and everybody viewing us right now is we need action. We need action. We need signatures. We have to get those signatures. Think of these people down here. Think of these victims. Think of the two wonderful ladies that were here before me on this stage. We need to help them. And we have to do that by taking action. And it's a little uncomfortable sometimes to get up, find out where the petition is, and actually put your name on it. It might take a few calories. It might take 10 or 15 minutes of your time. But let me tell you something, it's worth it. Okay? It's worth it. We need to work hard. This audience here is just a small sample of the people who are fighting to get this terrible person out of office. I don't know how he got into office, but somebody fell asleep at the wheel. We have to start voting all the way through a ballot next time. We can't let a down ballot election go to someone who is totally unqualified for the job and who decides he's a king and he's going to make the laws of this county. That's not how it works. So please, 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 I know I'm asking a lot of people, sign those petitions, get it going. That's the only way we're going to get rid of this tyrant. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next up, so I handle child abuse cases. They're really child murder cases, and I've been doing that at least exclusively downtown since 2016. But I've been handling child cases for over a decade, and they're tough cases. They're difficult. And one of the reasons I came forward was because I had a child case. It was a little girl, and I'm not going to tell you her name because it's an open case, but she was 4, and she was tortured and murdered. And George Gascón wanted me to remove certain allegations, and I just wasn't willing to do it. And that was December 15th of last year. Those directives came out on the 7th, and that was the 15th in court. And so these cases are real, and these are real victims. And if DAs can't fight for child murder victims, what kind of community are we living in if we can't do that? Really, think about that. What kind of community are we living in? What kind of a DA has such a lack of empathy for our children that he cares more about criminals Do you know what he said? He said child murderers and child rapists evolve. Let me tell you something, and I know this. If you murder a child, you rape a child, you don't evolve, and you don't get out of prison. You don't get rehabilitated. It just doesn't happen. And that's data and science. I want to introduce to you the family of Gabriel Fernandez, the family of Anthony Avalos, the family of little Pique, and the family of Noah Quattro, Olivia, Emily, Maria, David, Maggie, and the grandma of Pique, all going to speak to you about children, about the loss of children in their family and how it affected them. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Olivia Rubio, family member of Gabriel Fernandez. Thank you, everybody, for coming here today. Thank you, John, for inviting us. This is our family. John has become our family almost 8 years ago when we started going to court. We started, and just recently, our families with Anthony Avalos and Noah Cuatro and Piki. We're all this is a family that we never knew we were gonna have. With all the childs that we have lost, we're here strong, and we're not giving up. It's been many years, but I don't know why we keep standing here and have to fight. We will fight until Gascón is out.
My name is Emily Carranza. I'm also a cousin of Gabriel Fernandez, and Olivia and I have been standing side by side together for the past 8 years, seeking justice for our little cousin. Unfortunately, his mother is related to us. Just recently, after her sentencing, her and Osorio, we got the news in April with Gascon's new directives. She was possibly going to be resentenced with his new directives. We fought, we held a protest, we fought against it, and because of her admittance to the murder of Gabriel, she will forever spend her time in jail without the possibility of parole. She will see death in there. Through these tragedies, we have become family members and friends with Noah's family and Anthony's family and Piquio's family. So we ask that you all come united with us, sign those petitions to get Gascón out. He's no good for us, the community, or for the future of our children.
Hello, my name is Maria Barron, and my nephew Anthony Avalos was murdered by my sister-in-law, Heather Barron, and her live-in boyfriend, Kareem Leyva. Not a day goes by that I don't miss my Anthony. I had him for 7 years of his life. I did the right thing. I reported the abuse. I took the kids. We took care of them. DCFS made us give them back. 3 years later, we get the call that Anthony's in the hospital. The last time I saw my baby boy, he was happy and healthy. When I got to the hospital, he was covered in bruises from head to toe, cigarette burns everywhere. He was gone. Today I'm here to ask for your help. Help us fight for justice, for these boys, for my boy, for my nephew. Every day, it's a constant struggle, knowing that he can't be with us, because he should have been with us. The system failed him. So please help me get justice. We can't fail him again. He deserves this and so much more. Thank you so much.
My name is David Barron. I'm the uncle of Anthony Avalos. My sister is the one that was torturing him with her boyfriend. I, myself, and several other family members called, made reports, did everything we can, everything we felt right that we could do legally, and it just backfired. Anthony and his siblings didn't deserve any of the stuff that they went through, and for Gascón to not want to put my sister in jail for life puts her kids' mental health at risk. 15 years from now, they may see the murder of their brother walking the street trying to make contact with him again. Why does she deserve a second chance? Why does the boyfriend deserve a second chance? Gascón says that we're just spiteful, but he has never gone through anything that anybody up here has gone through. He's not once tried to talk to any of us to see how we feel, but he's quick to give them reform. What is he going to reform? So they can get out be smarter and get away with it next time? No, there's no consequences. They can do it again, be out another 15 years? What's stopping gang members from hiring these little kids? They know when they're not 18, they're not going to be tried as an adult. So do the crime while you're a kid. You'll be out as an adult and have street credit. He's enabling them. He's helping the criminals. And he's making all of us suffer twice as much for no reason. So please, whenever you see it, and if you know anybody who needs to see it, have them sign it and recall George Gascón. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Maggie Hernandez. Noah was my great nephew. Sorry, I still have a hard time talking about it. He died 2 years ago. He was murdered from my niece and his own father. And next year, we're gonna start going through the court process. So we are really worried that they may get out and we won't get justice for Noah. And it was just terrible what happened to him. He was tortured, he was starved to death, he was sodomized and strangled. He couldn't make it anymore. But I really pray and I hope that we get justice and George Gascón gets recalled because he's not there. He's never talked to any of us. And these kids, these kids that are still in the system and kids that are still suffering out there, they deserve justice too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Esteves, and I want to wish everyone a good evening, and I'm glad that you're all here supporting us. My grandson, Armaz Andresian II, also known as Peaky, was killed by his father 4 years ago. Because my daughter wanted a divorce, and this was his only way of getting back at my daughter. He knew that my daughter loved her son more than anything on this earth. April 20th, he took my grandson to Disneyland. April 21st, he killed him. It took 3 months, 90 days to recover the body. And by this time, he was skeletal. That was June 30th. My daughter got the knock on the door from 2 police officers, 2 Los Angeles Sheriff's officers. We have 3 anniversaries that we lived through. The third one is July 18th. That was the day of his funeral. So this is an ongoing thing for us that we have no peace. Every day we wake up in the morning, the first thing we think about is my grandson, my daughter's son. We think about him all day. I take a shower, I'm crying in the shower. At night when I go to bed, I think of him. I have nightmares in the middle of the night. But also I want to address Mr. Gascón, because Mr. Gascón, there's another victim to this. My husband, he died exactly 1 year to the day of Peaky's funeral, July 18th. And Mr. Gascón, my husband would be so ashamed of you because he is Cuban, and you are Cuban, and you are a disgusting person, and you need to be recalled.
I'm so sorry for everyone, and I'm so sorry for every child who got murdered.
I do hope through all of this that we see we're just all humans. We're all people, and we're all living on this planet. We want to live in safety. When a D doesn't even care to want to talk to family members, and I've talked to family members who he actually did talk to through Zoom, because he won't do it in person. And he's dismissive to them too. And he told a mother of a murdered child that she was uneducated and told her to shut up. This was on video. This is the elected DA. How can anybody support that person who would do that? The next person I want to introduce is another friend of mine, somebody who is a friend of myself, my family, my wife. Before she became my assemblywoman, my assembly member, she's a good person. She's actually fighting every day for children, making sure that children can go to TK, which is so important. Education is the most important. If we're going to utilize our money wisely, we really need to utilize it in education. And so I want to introduce our assembly member, Suzette Valadares.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, Santa Clarita. Thank you for coming out tonight to support victims and to support their families, and for being one of the very first communities to say no to the anti-justice policies of George Gascón. There is no defense for not putting the worst of the worst behind bars, except for when you have a prosecutor who won't show up. If you rape a woman, you deserve to be prosecuted and sentenced to the full extent of the law. If you beat someone who's Asian or gay or lesbian or transgender, you deserve to be prosecuted and sentenced to the fullest extent of the law. If you are a gang member and a criminal, you deserve to be sentenced and prosecuted and include enhancements. And if you torture and murder a child, you deserve to be prosecuted and sentenced to the full extent of the law, including the death penalty. Since day one, since George Gascón has been elected and serving or not serving our community, he has emboldened criminals and made our community less safe. Murder is up 22%. Gun violence, mostly by gang members, is up 59%. This is unacceptable, and we will not sit back idly when our government and elected officials do not protect victims, do not protect families, and do not uphold the law. I'm going to add this, though. I've heard a few people say that this isn't political, and I'm going to disagree with you slightly, because it's not partisan. It's not about being a Democrat. It's not about being a Republican, no party preference, Green Party, Libertarian, but this is political. This is political because it is our civic responsibility to stand up when our elected officials will not represent the people. We have to get political. You have to sign this recall, but it's not good enough for you to just sign the recall. You need to call your friends, your family, your neighbors, tell them about the stories of that these families had to endure in their life, and then to be victimized again by a DA that will not hold up the law. And when you are done talking to your family and your neighbors and they've signed the petition and you don't think that you can do any more, donate. Because $5, $100, whatever you can give will guarantee that we recall George Gascón. We have to keep our community safe. Get political. This is not partisan, but get political. Our community depends on it. My 4-year-old daughter depends on it. Your family depends on it. Thank you.
Next up is the elected DA of Fresno County, and I want to let you know a little bit about Lisa Smith-Camp. When this thing first started, it was difficult for everybody, and I really did lean on Cindy Zimmer Lisa Smith-Camp and Anne-Marie Schubert. They were kind enough to reach out to me, to give me guidance, to provide mentorship, to just be there, because a lot was going on in this community and still keeps going on. These are really, really good elected DAs. This is what an elected DA should be, is a Cindy Zimmer or a Lisa Smith-Camp or an Anne-Marie Schubert. Somebody who's gonna stand for the rights of all victims and gonna fight for them. So give a big round of applause for Lisa Smith-Camp.
Good afternoon, everybody. As John said, my name is Lisa, and I have the privilege of being the Fresno County District Attorney. I have some really bad news for you today, and it's that you don't have a DA in LA. You have a public defender. You have a person who is a political puppet. You have a person who has been bought and could potentially be sold, hopefully someday, but he's been bought by a movement that we see not only in this county, but in this state and in this nation. And it is time for the madness to stop. To stop. I'm going to assume that every single one of you here has signed the recall, okay? Your responsibility does not stop there. If you can afford to give $5, great. If you can afford $5,000, great, or anything in between. But here's what I'm going to challenge you to do today, because I've been sitting back here listening to what's going on. And the one thing that all these tremendous speakers haven't challenged you to do is to do something that I had to do in my campaign, because I ran against a person who was beloved in my community. She really didn't do anything wrong, but she wasn't doing the job. And everyone said, you can't do it. You can't beat her. She's an incumbent. She's been in office for 3 terms. She's never done anything wrong. And I said she never did anything right. She just didn't do anything. And when the rest of us that work there, much like John, we did our work in spite of her, not because of her, not because we were motivated by her. And everyone in the beginning said, you can't beat her. And I beat her by 17.85 percentage points. Now here's what you need to do, because this is what I did. I asked every person who supported me to go out and ask 20 people, and that's Fresno. We have 1 million people. You have 10 million here. So every one of you needs to go out and you need to talk to 50 people that you work with, that you go to church with, that you go to the gym with, anybody that you can, because you know what? We live in a society where it doesn't matter what color you are, what religion you are, what race you are, where you live, if you're rich, poor, or anywhere in the middle, people are busy. Everyone's busy. People don't take time to care. And your assemblywoman is very, 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 she's right on point. She's exactly right. It's not partisan, but it is politics. Because George Gascón is motivated by the politics and the people who are funding him. That's who he cares about. He cares about who's filling his coffer. He cares about meeting with movie stars and all of these people who think they're doing right. And they're not. They're hurting people. If you look at the FBI statistics, 70% of black people are killed by black people. 85% of Hispanic people are killed by Hispanic people. Same with white people, same with Asian people. This isn't a racial divide. Gang members kill other gang members, and they kill innocent people too. They don't care. They have no regard for human life. And there are some people, sadly, that don't deserve to breathe the same air that the rest of us do after they commit crimes. And I am so sick and tired of everybody feeling bad for criminals. Now, do I have sympathy for people who have drug problems and who maybe steal or they have mental health issues? Absolutely. And we have places for those people. We have plenty of rehabilitative programming for people like that. But when you're talking about child murderers, child rapists, and murderers and gang members who have a complete reckless disregard for human life, you're talking about a whole different set of animals. And it's not politically correct to say this, but they're animals. That's what they are. And they need to be put in prison. And I'm so tired of people dancing around all of this. There are 58 elected DAs in this state. George Gascón is a fake. George Gascón is a phony. He's never tried a criminal case. He has never tried. And I'm going to tell you, Cindy said that the Angelinos got it wrong, and I agree with her, but the Angelinos were lied to. This man sold you a load. If there weren't children here, I would use the word. He sold you a bill of goods. Because there were good people that voted for George Gascón. I went to the University of Southern California, about 1 hour south of here. And fight on, baby. And I have a kid who's graduating this year. And you know what? I don't want her here. Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid for my child to attend my alma mater. Because of the fact that you guys are in a lawless county with George Gascón at the helm. And Alex Villanueva, I don't know where you are. I've talked to you on the phone. I've never had the pleasure to meet you, but God bless you. There you are, somewhere. Hi, Sheriff. You guys are so blessed to have Alex Villanueva, because when you're a political person, when you have to be elected to your position, this is a hard thing to do. There are 3 elected DAs, and you're seeing all 3 of us today, who have come out and publicly just blasted Gascón. Because why? All the rest of us we all have to be elected, and all the rest of them, they probably don't want to have the George Soros machine come after them. That's why. Even the small counties are afraid. Well, you know what? I could give a rip. I will talk to anybody that will listen. We talk about it on our local radio, because you know what? I'm 51 years old. I've been doing this job for 26 years. I've got a husband who can support me, and I've got a retirement already. If I walk out the door right now, I'm fine. I don't have to sell my house. I don't have to get a new car. But you know why I'm here? Is because of people like that over there, those victims. And I was sitting there. I haven't been in court in a long time. I've been the DA for 7 years. I've only gotten to try 1 case. And I was sitting back there, and I told Anne Marie, I said, man, when we're out of the courtroom, we forget how important the victims are. Because we're tied up in budgets and all this other monkey business that we have to do as electeds. But I'm going to tell you something. I want you to just leave you with this. Be blessed. Know that you're blessed and so lucky to have your sheriff and this man right here who is a warrior. John Hatami makes me proud to be a DA. John Hatami is the reason that I don't quit my job and go to Starbucks and have coffee and go to yoga. Because I'm at the point in my life where I could do that. But you know what? I work with 100 John Hatamis in the Fresno County DA's office. And every day we wake up and we have the benefit and the privilege of being prosecutors. We fight for people who don't have a voice. We sing their praises, we encourage them, and we help them heal. Because when you have a child who has been murdered, there really is no justice. You never heal. You're never better. You're never the same. You just have to learn to cope. And so that's what we do. We try to walk them through this system that we call the criminal justice system. And that's what George Gascón wants it to be. He wants it to be their justice system. It's our justice system. It's the people's justice system. When we stand up in court, I say Lisa Smitkamp for the people. I don't say Lisa Smitkamp for Lisa Smitkamp, because that's what George Gascón is about. George Gascón is in it for George Gascón. Every one of these victims said he hasn't met with them. Well, he's meeting with Kim Kardashian. He's meeting with all his fancy people, but he's not talking to you. Shame on you, George Gascón. Shame on you. Get everybody to sign this recall, donate whatever money you can, and kick ass, LA. We are praying for you and we are behind you.
Next up is our sheriff, another person who reached out to me early on during this fight. I want to let you know a little about the sheriff, because a lot of times you see stuff that's on TV or in the newspapers. The sheriff is a good man. He's got a tough job. There's over 10,000 people in the sheriff's department. It's like a small city, and it's a tough job. It's a really, really tough job. But he told me a story once when he was a deputy, and there was a little child who was sexually assaulted. And he made sure, through the process, that child got justice. And when everybody talks about defunding the police, who's going to prosecute and who's going to help child abuse victims? Who's going to help sexual assault victims? Who's going to help domestic violence victims if we don't have the police? Who is going to do that? Is George Gascón going to do that? He won't even come out of his own office to talk to anybody. So I want you to give a warm welcome to our sheriff, my sheriff, Alex Villanueva.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting the recall. And I'm going to make this as short as possible. I'm going to be as blunt and as direct as possible because I don't like to pull punches. First off, I'm going to give a direct message to George Gascón. Yeah, some people are saying, oh boy. This is really, really simple. You were elected to do a job. You're refusing to do your job. Do the honorable thing and resign right now. That is not something I take or I say lightly, but I have 5,932 reasons to say that. That is 5,932 crimes that our deputies went out, rolling code 3, hair on fire, risking life and limb, saving people, writing reports, investigating difficult circumstances, and then our detectives take over, bring the case to the DA's office, and 5,932 times they said, this doesn't conform to our special orders, so we're not going to prosecute. Now, this is a strange thing, because I've been doing my job exactly the way the Constitution says you should do the job. I defend and protect the oppressed from the oppressors. It puts me in sometimes in awkward positions because you say, why are you doing that? And then you go down to the facts of the matter and say, yeah, that's the right thing to do. And if you look at, I'm going to introduce a concept. We're calling it woke privilege. Hashtag that, because that is the Kim Kardashians of the world. That's all the Hollywood elite. That's the political elite from the one-party system of California that's telling you that George Gascón is a reformer, or they'll say reform-minded. You got to follow the language here. But when you talk about reforms, their version of reform, they're trying to entirely redesign the entire criminal justice system to the benefit of criminals at the expense of victims of crime. And I believe that victims matter. They matter first and foremost and always. So everything they're proposing is to the benefit of the criminal offender. And if you look at their policies on crime and on homelessness, suspiciously they're very similar, because they're never going to be personally impacted by what they're proposing. That is woke privilege. And that is, we need to end that. We need to start holding people accountable, elected people accountable if they're not doing their job. And Jesus, if there's one person who's not doing his job, his name is George Gascón. June 8th was a special day in the Sheriff's Department history. We launched the largest invasion of the high desert to rid it of illegal marijuana grows. At the same time, we went to Venice to address the homeless crisis. Same time, that evening, the political elite of the one-party system in LA County voted 91% to call for my resignation. Now you understand the challenges that we face, because that's the same group that endorsed Gascón. Then I have the Board of Supervisors telling me you need to resign, or let's find a way we just get rid of the office of sheriff, make it appointed. As if that's going to work. So if they want to design an office, how about we create an alternate public defender? And I have an applicant for that right there. I think his name is George Gascón. They love to create offices to do those things. Well, let's have him design that one. He fits the bill perfectly. And let's get a real district attorney in office who's going to represent victims of crime, who's going to represent the community, and work as a partner with law enforcement together on one side, and by all means, everyone has their constitutional rights. That's why we have public defender, alternative, private counsel on the other side. Had George Gascón ever set foot in the real courtroom in his entire life, he would have realized when the court is in session, there's two sides. And the DA does not sit with the public defender on one side and leaves the law enforcement alone by themselves on the other side. So we need to explain how this works to George Gascón. If we need to really get that in conversation with him, maybe he just needs to leave. So I'm calling on him to resign, do the right thing. Right now, I have crime surging out of control. I have people that decide, since where you have Prop 47, a DA that's not going to prosecute theft, they can walk into any store, grab everything they want, and just walk out, as you've seen the videos. Or tragically, the Rite Aid clerk who was killed just, I think, a week ago, and that Rite Aid is now closing. 30 people out of a job. Yep, there's consequences when there are no consequences to committing crime. And let's make sure that the woke crowd understand that. Let's start holding people accountable. So thank you everyone for being here. Have a sense of urgency. Let's get those signatures going. Let's get this man out of here. Thank you.
Next up is Tanya Owen. Tanya is a good friend of mine. I knew her husband, Steve, who was killed in the line of duty. I did a lot of cases with him. He was a really, really good man. Tanya was a deputy for a long time, and she was a great deputy. She also was a special victims detective in the sheriff's department, and Tanya and I have grown very close, and she's going to come up and give you a few words about the recall and about Steve and her husband, and I want you all to listen to what Tanya has to say. Tanya Owen.
Thank you very much. Good evening, folks. It's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here because I'm here to talk to you about something that's extremely important, something that we as a community, we need to act on. And like John said, my name is Tanya Owen, and I'm a wife, a widow of Sergeant Steve Owen, who was brutally executed on October 5th, 2016. I was also a member of law enforcement. I retired after 32 years of service with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. I'd like to have my sister come up here. This is my best friend, but really more like my sister, Mrs. Vicky Speed, the widow of, I know she said wife. We hesitate using the word widow because we just do. You know, I lost my husband almost 5 years ago, come October 5th. She lost her husband on July 7th, 2018. So since then, we have come together as wives of law enforcement, her as a civilian and me as a law enforcement wife of a law enforcement officer. And we have actually, through the grace of God, and honestly because of him, it's the only reason we stand here before you and we smile and we can talk about our husbands with, you know, and we stand here and talk about them very proudly because they were incredible men who really made a difference out in the community. And we have been blessed because really God has opened up so many doors for us that we were able to write a book about our husbands, and it's called After the Badge by Vicky Speed and Tanya Owen. And what we really talk about is about giving people hope, marriages hope, because I don't know if a lot of you know, but being a law enforcement officer, it really takes a courageous person to volunteer, just like those who go into the military, because they don't have to put their lives on the line. They don't have to put their lives in danger, but they do every single day. And, you know, at the time my husband was murdered, a police officer was killed in the line of duty every 56 hours. However, I bet you don't know this. I didn't even know this myself, that each and every year there are more that commit suicide than there are those that are murdered or killed in the line of duty. So, you know, I know that right now we're fighting a lot of different things out there. We have George Gascón, who to me, he's an evil man. He was sent here to destroy Los Angeles County. There is no other ifs, ands, or buts. He is evil. George Gascón needs to be removed from his seat. He needs to be out of Los Angeles County. And please pay attention, folks. This is not something that's just affecting Los Angeles County. This is something that is affecting our entire country, our entire nation. You have other George Gascóns strategically placed throughout our country to destroy our country. There's a bigger picture, folks. George Gascón is just a microcosm of what is happening throughout our country. But here's the beauty of it, folks. We still have a voice. We still have a voice. George Gascón works for us. We can get him out of office, but it really takes all of us to be involved. The recall is only on for 160 days. The last day for this recall is October 27th. Folks, we need you, we need your help. We need for you to get on social media, Facebook, Instagram, whatever avenue you have to really encourage people to go out there and vote. We can stand here all day long and talk about how many signatures we need and how much we need you, but we need action. I don't want to stand here October 28th and say, guess what, guys? We didn't get rid of this evil man. And guess what? It's going to get worse. You think it's bad now? Stand by, Los Angeles. October 29th, if George Gascón is not out of office, we are in some serious trouble. And please understand that because of George Gascón, the morale has gone down in the district attorney's office. Because of George Gascón and everything that's going on, the morale has gone down in our law enforcement agencies. We can't have that. And please understand that every law enforcement officer that goes out every day to fight evil needs our support. Right now, law enforcement is attempting to do their jobs with both their hands tied behind their backs. How are they supposed to do that? The bottom line is we need to get back to holding people accountable for committing crimes. We need to get back to the basics, and that is enforcing the law and taking these people to jail, working up our cases, giving them to the deputy district attorneys who will then take it to court and hold these people accountable to the full extent of the law. And that's all we want. On October 5th, 2016, my husband was working as a field supervisor in the city of Lancaster. He was working as a patrol supervisor. At about a half hour before the end of his shift, Lancaster Station received a 911 call of a burglary in progress. It was a woman with her young son. They were in a home, which happened to be a 2-story home. They were in the upstairs. They said that they heard glass break. They looked downstairs and saw a male in their home. They were extremely frightened because they didn't know what to do. My husband happened to be the very first officer that responded to the call. As he was approaching the call, he had his lights and sirens going. I have no doubt this individual heard the sirens, left the home, thank God. So now the mother and son are safe. He left the residence, and as he was jumping over the wall to go to a next door apartment complex, that's when my husband made eye contact with him. He put out over dispatch that he saw the individual jumping over the wall to an apartment complex, which anyone that works the Lancaster area knows that is a problem apartment where there's a lot of drug activity, gang activity, a lot of high crime area. My husband happened to go into the complex, and in this particular complex, there was only one way in and one way out. As he entered the complex and came around, he put out on the air that he was going to be detaining one at gunpoint. And, those of us who have worked a radio car, have worked out in the field, know that, we have to be able to multitask. And we have to put out our location prior to making contact with anyone. So that's why he put that out before he was even able to exit his vehicle. Within 9 seconds, our dispatcher asked my husband for his for his status. It was silence. Well, everyone knew when Sergeant Steve Owen was out in the field, and if he didn't respond, there was a problem. Immediately, everybody started responding. But what we later learned was this, through the investigation that was gleaned by the homicide investigators, was that the suspect, who was 27 years of age, was a known gang member, a parolee, a dangerous, violent criminal who had in his possession a stolen revolver. He was also a third striker, and at that point, he made contact with my husband. Now, we hear the news say that law enforcement is shooting people in the back. Well, let me tell you how this man ended up shooting and killing my husband. He was giving my husband his back. He had the revolver right here in his waistband. And as my husband attempted to detain him, he didn't even look back. He said it was his lucky shot. He took this revolver and put it between his left arm and his body and shot. A random shot, a 1 in a million. That shot hit my husband on the forehead, completely disabling him. As he fell back, his gun fell back behind him. Now keep in mind, the suspect at this point should have run away, could have run away. But he made a decision to run to my husband, blatantly run to my husband, purposely run to my husband, stood over him and shot him 3 more times in the head. Another shot in the forehead, 1 in his eye, and the other in the cheek. Oh, but that wasn't enough. He had to make sure he sent us a message. He took his gun, and the last round, he shot my husband's badge. To me, as a law enforcement officer, he was clearly trying to send a message saying that I don't care who you are, you're not going to stand between me and what I want to do. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if we could have someone who is so blatant and can kill a law enforcement officer who is there to stand between you and I, because I'm a civilian now. I'm no longer a sworn officer. I'm a civilian just like you are. I need my law enforcement. I support my law enforcement. And that's what we all need to do. And if he can stand there and shoot a law enforcement officer so blatantly, what is he not willing to do? Who is next? Somebody will be next. He is the type of person who is a monster. These are people that someone here was talking about that should be behind bars for the rest of their lives, and they should not they should not be out in society to breathe the same oxygen that you and I breathe. However, we have a district attorney, George Gascón, now, who does not agree with that, who does not want to support his victims, who does not want to be there for his victims. He wants to let these violent offenders out to the communities, to our communities, to reoffend. Now, there are monsters, folks, that do not deserve to come out. These are cop killers, these are child killers, these are rapists, these are people that commit violent crimes, because when they come out, they may stay dormant for a while, but it's only a matter of time before they reoffend. They rape another person, they kill another child, they molest another child, they kill another cop, or they kill one of us. So we have to make sure that George Gascón is removed from his seat. If you have not signed the petition, there's a young lady here. Please raise your hand. Please see her and sign the petition. But folks, listen, please listen to what I'm saying. We only have until October 27th to get 700,000 signatures. We need 580,000 official signatures, but in order to get that, we need to have a higher number, 700,000, folks. We only have until October 27th. So please, we need to get the word out. We need to get the petitions. We need to go out there and have people sign them. Go to recallgeorgegascon.com and please inform yourselves. Let's get rid of this guy, please. And thank you, sir. There was an interesting turn of events, and thank you for reminding me of this because I need to bring this up. Under this man was arrested, and under LA District Attorney Jackie Lacey, he was charged with a myriad of charges, to include special circumstances for the killing of unlawful killing of a law enforcement officer during the performance of his duty, killing of a police officer in an attempt to escape arrest, and all the enhancements that you heard about: a known gang member, a third striker, a parolee, the gun charge, and there was other crimes that he committed. So at that time, and based on the facts, which is what your deputy district attorneys work on, is the facts of the case. Based on the facts of the case, we were going to pursue the death penalty. This was the classic case. It was the nail on the coffin case. We were going to pursue the death penalty. However, on December 7th of last year, when George Gascón was sworn into office, he was very quick to tweet out a message saying that any case currently being pursued for the death penalty was to stop immediately, and that the death penalty was no longer going to be pursued. That affected me directly. Now, keep in mind, in the last 15 years, California voters have voted for the death penalty on at least 3 separate occasions. Okay, that's the will of the people. We believe in the death penalty. However, you have 2 individuals that are getting in the way of that. One is George Gascón, and the other is Newsom. Even if we did get the death penalty, Newsom put a moratorium on the death penalty. What are we doing, folks? What kind of leaders? Or they call themselves leaders. What? We need to get rid of both of them. We need people that are going to fight for us. We need people that are going to restore justice. We need leaders that are going to be here for us. Oh, we all want the same thing. You know, we work hard for our money. We work hard for what we have. We just want to be able to live in a neighborhood where our children can play without fearing that there's going to be a child molester coming over and snatching them. You want to be able to go to the bank and use your ATM without fear of being robbed, of being shot in the head. You want to go and do things. You want to live life. We work hard. So in order for us to be able to do that, we need the leaders that are going to protect us. We don't have that, LA. We need to get rid of George Gascón. And Newsom. As it were, when I went to court on my case, and I want to tell you that our case has been adjudicated. It's done. But it's interesting because this is important that you hear this. After George Gascón came into office and removed all of the special circumstances and all of the enhancements, this man went from looking at the death penalty to only potentially getting 12 years in jail. He has served 5, so he would be out in 7. This is a cop killer. And that's because of George Gascón. However, after a couple of years of going to court, and quite honestly, I have to tell you this, and that really God has just worked some incredible miracles in my life, and really the life of this murderer, because I have befriended his mother, his sister, and his niece. They are wonderful ladies. They actually are really good people, and I consider them my friends. I consider them my family now. And I came to a place after 2 years of going to court where I prayed a lot about forgiveness and getting to a place where I could forgive this individual. And it took me over 2 years, but I finally came to that place where I forgave him. When we went to court in June, a couple months ago, or last month, May, thank you. When we went to court in May, I remember giving my victim impact statement. And I remember telling this murderer that I pray for him. And I do. I pray for him. And I told him that my prayer for him was that he would rekindle his relationship with Christ. And that one day he would go into the yard and win souls for God. Because folks, that's what we need. We're in trouble. This whole nation is in trouble. And we just need to get back to prayer and pray. Yes. Good versus evil. Thank you. That's exactly right. And so, and what was interesting is we were at a point where we were going to have to go to trial. Remember, he was looking at potentially only doing 12 years. But guess what? You know, prayer is so powerful. The suspect, the murderer, actually offered up a deal to us. Gascón, let me be clear, Gascón had absolutely nothing to do with this. His offer was this, that he would take life without the possibility of parole and agreed to die in prison. The murderer had more empathy for my family than George Gascón did. This did not come from George Gascón. It was not a deal worked through his office. The murderer had more empathy for my family. I thank him for that, because we don't have to put my mother-in-law, our kids, our 3 children through that, to see the pictures of their fathers shot up in the face, the pictures of the morgue, the pictures of the scene. He didn't put us through that. He actually took life without the possibility of parole. And I hope and pray to God that one of these days I get to visit with him in prison and I talk to him. However, let me be clear on this. I forgave him, but make no mistake, there still has to be accountability for what you do. Thank you. And one last thing, Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Wow, he's incredible, folks. Just remember, I cannot recall a sheriff in my 32 years in law enforcement. I think the very first sheriff, the sheriff that was in office was Sherman Block. Then we have Lee Baca, then Mr. McDonald, and now Sheriff Alex Villanueva. Okay, where are you, sir? Okay, listen, folks, this man, wow, I absolutely admire him, and I'm not trying to kiss his behind because I don't no longer work for the Sheriff's Department, but he is incredible. He is out here really involved with the community. He truly cares and has a heart for the people that that we serve, that our deputies serve. And just please keep that in mind. He is a fighter. He's fighting for us. And I don't know of anyone else other than Sheriff Villanueva and John Hatami who continually fight for good, continually fight to get rid of George Gascón. And so please, let's support them. I know that the sheriff is going to be running here for re-election. Please, please, please vote for him. You have an incredible sheriff right there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Next up, we're going to try to move it a little long because it's going to get dark, is Patricia Wescunas. Patricia is another friend of mine. I met her in a really difficult time of my life when I just finished the Gabriel case. Patricia is in charge of crime survivors, and she's also a victim and a survivor. Really good person, really gives me a lot of guidance, really cares about victims, and she's going to talk to you a little bit. Patricia Wescunas.
Thank you. So he told me I could have an hour to talk to all of you, but I'm gonna talk really fast so that everybody else has a chance to get up here. My name is Patricia Wescunas, and I'm the founder CEO of Crime Survivors. But today I'm not here on behalf of our organization. I'm here as a survivor of attempted murder. I'm here not about my story, not about my personal survival, although I can relate to Tanya when she came up here and shared, because I was able to forgive the person that tried to kill me as well. And forgive the other people that have victimized me throughout my life. And it's not about forgiveness it's not about forgetting. I'll never forget what happened, but I've been able to forgive because it allows me to live a life without negativity or resentment, and it allows me to live in peace and happiness. But I really want to be able to acknowledge and recognize all the victims and survivors. Families of murder, survivors of attempted murder, rape, domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, elder abuse, and human trafficking, because they are the reason that we're doing this today. There is no other reason beyond that we need to have a district attorney that's going to stand up and support victims and support crime survivors, the innocent ones, not the ones that are now calling themselves victims and survivors that have offended and committed the crime. And I don't believe in calling somebody out of their name, but I have now named Gascón because I believe he's a con, and he needs to be removed from office immediately to get somebody into office that is a leader. When I look at these individuals over here like Jonathan Hatami, an incredible leader that cares about victims and survivors and our community. When I look at these district attorneys over here that flew in to come over here to support Los Angeles, to support the victims and survivors, those are leaders. Those are individuals making a difference.
When we have the sheriff of Los Angeles County that's willing to sacrifice everything for victims and survivors and for our community, that is a true leader. We also have individuals here today that are victims and survivors and family members and loved ones that are struggling and triggered. And we need to be able to boost them up and to help and to support them. We have advocates that are struggling through the Bureau of Victim Services under the so-called leadership of Gascón, and that can't do their jobs because they're not even able to help the victims and the innocent survivors as they should be. And we need to support and build them up because they're doing an incredible job day in and day out. And I want to read this to you. What a deputy district attorney tells a victim's family in 2021, and this happened in Los Angeles County under Gascón's leadership. Victims need to also sympathize with the defendant and the trauma he or she is going through as well. That's not justice, and victims do not need to sympathize. If they do, that's their choice, that's their right, but they do not need to. And I ask that you join me today by contributing, whether it's $5, $10, $15, $100, or you find a donor that wants to give $100,000 or $1 million or whatever it may be, so that we can get Gascón out of office and that we can get a district attorney that's going to believe in our communities for public safety, for victims, and for survivors. And make sure that you sign and go home tonight and post it all over social media and ask people to sign and donate and contribute and get involved, because when we unite together, we are a force to be reckoned with, and this is about preventing you and your loved ones from being a victim or a survivor, and God forbid that you are, that you're able to get justice here in Los Angeles County and throughout the nation, because if Gascón stays in office, this is going to happen throughout this nation and we will lose the battle. So remember, contribute, sign the petition, and tell 5, 10, 20 other people to do it as well. God bless all of you.
So there's another election that's going on. It's for the Attorney General of California. It's an important position, really important. There's a person here who is the elected DA of Sacramento. Her name's Anne-Marie Schubert. She is running for Attorney General. She is running against Bonta, somebody who's friends with Gascón, somebody who was appointed by Newsom, somebody who doesn't care about victims and survivors. Anne-Marie Schubert is somebody I support, and I hope you give her a round of applause and a great welcome and support her too. District Attorney Anne-Marie Schubert.
John. You know, it's interesting because it doesn't matter if you're in Sacramento or in Los Angeles County or San Luis Obispo or San Francisco. Crime has consequences. And for those of us that, you know, in law enforcement, the sheriff, Tanya, John, Lisa, Cindy, we are the folks that sit with all of you. And I learned something a while back. We've all done these cases, but when you sit with families of violent crime, you understand that the sunlight is never the same again, ever. It's just not. George Gascón's never sat with those families. He doesn't understand, nor does he actually care, that the sunlight will never be the same. And when Lisa Smitkamp says, you know, we haven't been in a courtroom, I'm very, very confident that when we think about the cases that we've prosecuted, we always come back to the reason why we do this. And I could spend an hour, like Patricia said, and talk about cases. But for me, there's so many of families that you've met along the way. Some 20 years ago, there was a serial child molester running around Sacramento, kidnapping little kids. One of them was 5 years old. Her name was Lilia. She didn't even speak a word of English. Kidnapped in the middle of the day, taken up to the hills outside of Sacramento and horrifically sexually assaulted and beaten. That man kidnapped 7 children under the age of 7. We went to trial. We caught him through DNA. Went to trial. He was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. he's up for parole next year. Now in Sacramento, or in Fresno, or in Kern, or pretty much any county outside of this county, you're going to have a prosecutor that goes to that parole hearing and demands that justice is served, and that that person is never released to harm another child again. But you won't see that here in Los Angeles, because on December 7th, Gascón unleashed the dismantling of the justice system here in Los Angeles County. There is chaos in the criminal justice system. There is chaos, and the epicenter is right here in Los Angeles. And that chaos began many years ago. Ironically, George Gascón was the district attorney of San Francisco, and he was the architect of Prop 47. It is ironic, if not eye-opening, that when he chose to run for Los Angeles district attorney, the mayor of San Francisco said, "I'm not supporting him because he's destroying San Francisco." So when we talk about what's happening here in Los Angeles and the chaos, it is the constant weakening of accountability, and it's really the evisceration of crime victims' rights. So for those of us, all we have to hear is the stories. Up in Sacramento, we prosecuted the Golden State Killer. The man killed 13 people. He raped 50 women. People said we'd never catch him. Don't ever underestimate the power of persistence. Do not ever underestimate that. Because we are here today because that power of persistence is what everyone needs to have in this county. So when we talk about people like the Golden State Killer in Los Angeles County, wouldn't have sought the death penalty, wouldn't even have sought life without the possibility of parole. We would have offered him something in the neighborhood of that you get out as early as 15 years for killing 13 people and raping 50 women. So for those of us that are here, we are here from all over because we understand that they are dismantling the system here in Los Angeles, and this chaos is spreading. And if we do not stand up as elected officials, as law enforcement leaders, and most importantly, as members of our community raising our children, this chaos will only continue to spread. And so I ask everyone here, we all understand it, you've all heard from folks. It's not just about signatures. It's about fundraising. It's about donating 5 or 10 or whatever amount of money you can possibly do. But it's most importantly, it's about the power of persistence to stand up for public safety and crime victims' rights. So do that, exercise that power, and we can get rid of George Gascón. Thank you guys very much.
Next up is, there's 2 more victims, and then I'll have some closing remarks. The next up is Sky. Sky was the boyfriend of Michelle Dorsey. Michelle was killed here in Santa Clarita recently by her ex-husband, and Sky's gonna come up here and talk about Michelle and a few words about Michelle. Sky Gerard.
Hello everybody, first of all, thank you all for coming out here tonight. As Jonathan said, this is being in Santa Clarita tonight. I've been doing a lot of events and stuff, but tonight was the one that I knew was going to mean the most because in late December I met Michelle, and I knew right away she was a great woman. We hit it off, and we would talk for hours on the phone, and we met in person, and it just went from there. And I soon knew what a wonderful woman she was, and I knew that she was someone that I was going to spend a long time with. But on April 15th, when she was murdered, that all came to an end. That morning is a morning that for so many people, they will never forget. It was a morning that the lives of so many people were shattered. There's pain that will never go away, and all we have left is memories. What brings me to George Gascón into our case is we went to a sentencing hearing, we gave our impact statements, and we had to hear the judge tell us that in 20 years he will be eligible for parole, because life without parole is not on the table. So before his youngest son is even 30 years old, he will have the possibility of being back on the streets. Even if he isn't ever released, he has hope that he can be released. There's no hope for us of ever seeing Michelle again, of ever hearing her again, of ever hearing her laugh, of ever hearing her say that she loves us. But he has hope that he can be out on the streets again. And that is why we must get George Gascón out. It's too late for us, but we need to make sure that victims in the future don't go through the same thing that we're going through. Because George Gascón does not stand for victims. He stands with defense attorneys. He's endorsed by defense attorneys. That should say enough that somebody who is supposed to be there for the victims, he's supposed to be the voice of the victims, but yet he believes that the criminals are the victims. So there's a lot of work left to do between now and October 27th. And like everybody up here before me has said, you've done your part and signed the petition. Now go to work and get 5 of your coworkers to sign it. When you're anywhere you can, in the line at the grocery store, talk to people, get the word out there, because too many people aren't aware of what's really going on with George Gascón. I've noticed it myself. People that I thought would have known what's going, they have no idea even about the recall or even about George Gascón's policies. So, just starting a conversation and, spreading the word, because as I forget who it was that said it earlier, if you think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse. The more people that see that they can get away with this, the more politicians that see that they can come out and do this, it's only going to get worse. So, yeah, you guys have been out here a long time. It was hot earlier, so I'm gonna leave you with that. But please, thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up, I'm going to tell you this rally is about victims and about survivors. And somebody I met who came up to me and wants to come and talk to you a little bit about what happened to her boyfriend is Jennifer. Come on up, Jennifer.
Thank you. My name is Jennifer, and I'm here on behalf of my boyfriend, Jonathan McLean, who was brutally murdered on January 31st, 2020. He went out like any young person, and these two guys that were there, they were talking. I don't know what led to it, but the guy shot him 12 times. He had an extended clip. He only 9 bullets physically hit him, but he shot him 6 times, walked over, placed the gun to his head, and shot him 3 more times. So somebody who kills that easily and that brutally has done it again and will do it again. So they don't deserve a second chance. They deserve to be tried to the highest extent of the law. So that's why I come to these events, because I want them to include the gang and gun enhancements. John was not in a gang, but and I know there's cameras out here, so I want to talk to the people who look like me and John, and who come from the communities that John and I come from. John and I do come from communities where there's gang violence, gun violence, but him and I were not in gangs. I went to USC as well. I graduated from USC, and I do believe that in our communities we don't have as many opportunities. When I went to USC, I had to take 2 metro buses and an actual bus to get there. So it was harder on me than people who have money, yes. But we all have opportunities and we can all say no to the gang lifestyle, and we did that. And even though we did that, he still got murdered very brutally, he got executed. And the person who did this to John was 22 years old. Therefore, if the enhancements aren't added, and because he's under 27 years of age, he can get out as early as 15 years from now. Therefore, when he gets out, he'll be in his late 30s, early 40s, so he can still have kids. He can still become famous. And John can never do none of these things. John was a barber. He contributed to our society, and we were working on opening our first barbershop, but unfortunately, we would never be able to do that. So for people who come from communities like us and who look like us, I want to say that, I understand that we need more resources, and I do believe in reform, but there's a difference in reforming somebody who commits petty crime, commits fraud, and somebody who commits murder. You can never come back from that. John will never, aspire to or accomplish his dreams, and John's mom will never have him back. So it's not fair, and that's why I'm here all the time to fight for John, and I'm gonna continue to do that because he deserves justice. So thank you very much.
I had never met Jennifer, and very happy to meet her. And that's what this is all about, is all of us coming together. I'm going to give a few thank yous. This is important for me to do that. And then I'm going to leave you with a few words, and then we're going to be done. Oh, and Isabella would like all of you at the end to hold up your glow sticks that you did give up when that does happen. I'd like to give a thank you to all the victims and survivors and family members who came here to talk to you. It's difficult. It's difficult to talk about these things. And so I want to thank all the victims and survivors and family members for coming up and talking about their loved ones and how it affected them. I want to thank the sheriff for coming out here and for constantly supporting victims and survivors. And I want to thank his wife, Vivian. Vivian is she was a deputy sheriff for a long time, and she's a big supporter of victims and survivors. I also want to thank the command staff of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and all the deputies that fight for us on a daily basis. I want to thank my wife, Roxanne. She is a deputy sheriff out here in Santa Clarita. Stand up, Roxanne. She's a deputy sheriff out here. She's patrolling your streets. She was there at Saugus. When that really horrendous thing happened. She went running into the school with a lot of other deputies. I'm really proud of her. She's also the mother of my children, which is important. She also is my rock, my best friend. And during these times, it's been really difficult. She's really been there for me. So thank you, Roxanne. I want to thank Anne-Marie, Cindy, and Lisa, just 3 of the best district attorneys in California. I want to thank our city council, Mayor Miranda, Jason Gibbs. Jason has been such a big supporter of victims and survivors, and I talk to him a lot, and he's really supporting all of us. I want to thank Jason and the mayor, Bill Miranda, and Suzette. Suzette has been such a great assembly member for us, and I want to thank her. I want to thank Stephanie English is here. She represents Kathleen Barger's office, and that is pretty much the only supervisor that we've had that is at least is trying to help us as much as they can. But I do want to thank Supervisor Barger and Stephanie English for being here and for supporting victims. Catherine Barger was the only one who stepped up when this issue with DJJ and Camps Scudder and Scott were brought up and what they're trying to do to our community. And so I really appreciate that. The community partners, Richard from the Signal, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Wives, LASD Wives, who really run around helping victims and survivors. I want to thank Isabella, who also is a really good skateboarder. I want to thank my two kids, Jonathan and Lindsay Beth. I want to thank Adam with Unite LA. I want to thank Patricia with Crime Survivors. I also want to thank the volunteers for the Recall Gascón group, Desiree, Trudy, Thea, who are out in the sun and the heat every day, and all the volunteers helping and working so hard to get signatures. And I want to thank Heather as part of the Recall group and all of the help that the Recall group has done in so many people. I also want to thank David Knudsen, who helped us get this area in the park. I didn't realize it was that difficult, but it is. So I want to thank him too. I just want to say a few more words and then I'm going to be done, because I think we've been here a long time and I think that you've heard a lot. This goes out to George Gascón. I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I challenge you to a debate anywhere, anytime. Come out of your 12th floor, come on down to Santa Clarita, come to Whittier, come to Pico Rivera, come anywhere you want, and I will debate you about anything regarding public safety. You know, bring the governor, bring your buddy Newsom. I'll debate both of them. Come, both you guys come out. I will debate you both. You can even bring Bonta. I'll debate him too. All three of them can come out, and I will debate them all. I want to tell you something. George Gascón has never stepped in a courtroom. Bonta has never stepped in a courtroom, and he wants to be your attorney general. Newsom wants to release 76,000 prisoners. 60,000 of them are dangerous individuals, and he doesn't care about your community, and he doesn't care about your children. So I challenge George Gascón and his data and science and his directives and his policies, and he claims that he has a mandate from the people. We have a mandate, and it's right out here. Come on out and face your community. Face the victims and survivors. Face the people in Los Angeles. And when you come out, George Gascón, what I want you to do, like NASCAR, is wear a jacket and have all the people that supported you on that jacket, so we can see George Soros and all these individuals who don't live here, who are not affected by your policies, and we can see everybody that supports you. It's called transparency, and you lack that. So anytime you see in the news where people start talking about George Gascón's policies and directives and how they help everybody, the crime rate is skyrocketing. Homicides are up. Shootings are up. According to the LAPD, there's 28 shootings in the city a week. And you know what the DA did? He got rid of certain firearms allegations. He got rid of the gang allegation. Do you know if you murder a police officer, there is no more special circumstances? If you intentionally murder and torture a child, there is no more special circumstances. He claims that murderers and rapists are victims. A murderer and a rapist is not a victim. These down here are family members of victims. So anytime, anywhere, George Gascón, I challenge you, Bonta, Newsom, all three of you can come up to the stage with me and we will debate public safety, because you have no idea what it means to keep your community safe. I hope everybody gets together, join together, stop fighting one another, join together and do one thing: recall George Gascón. Thank you.